Everyone, welcome to another episode of Dojo Live. I am Tulio Siragusa, joined today by my co-host and co-producers Carlos Ponce. Hi, Carlos. Welcome back. Good to have you. And today we're talking with Rishi Khanna, who is the co-founder and CEO. CEO, did I get that right? Yes, of ENO8. So we're going to talk about an interesting topic today about digital innovation amidst the changing landscape that's been exasperated by this thing called COVID-19. But before we go and do that, let's get to know Rishi a little bit. Rishi, could you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. A little bit about me. I grew up in India and I moved to the US when I was about 17 and I came to get my undergrad at University of Texas at Austin. I pursued, business economics at the business school there. And just coming out of school, I got my first job at Deloitte and Touche as a consultant. Soon after, about 16 months after, I decided to start my own IT consulting and outsourcing company. And I still run that business, separate entity named iSure. About 4.5 years ago, my business partner and I, Jeff Francis, started a company named ENO8, which is basically a digital product studio. A little about my personal life. I'm married. I have a beautiful wife, Priyanka Khanna, and we have two kids. They're 10-year-old twin boys, Ayan and Araf Khanna, and they're both in 5th grade. And we reside here in Plano, Texas.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. Appreciate it. Orange State. Awesome. Welcome. All right. So let's get to know a little bit about ENO8. What gave birth to this idea? You said it's a digital studio. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure. As I mentioned, I got into the IT industry in the late 90s. Number one reason why we started ENO8 is that during the course of those 16, 17 years of being in IT, I realized that there were a number of reasons why a software product fails. But the number one reason why it fails is because the software does not meet the market needs and the user requirements. And the backstory for that is that I will share one story. So we were working on this software product to help improve the experience for one of our customers, user and customer experience for one of our customers. And we spent a lot of time, talking about the solution and very little time talking about the problem and the needs of the users. And we followed our customers' demand, and we started developing this great product. We hired the best team. We had the best software architects on the project. We spent 6 to 8 months building the best software that we could build, and we launched it. And the worst thing came out towards the end. Nobody wanted it. The product did not solve the problems the client predicted it would. The users didn't want to use it, and so we spent all this time building this great software without validating the software problem that we were trying to solve. The use case was never solved, and the users were never involved in the development of the product. And I realized that was happening way too often, where we're building software and nobody's using them. So we felt that we needed to revisit that process. We wanted to keep the end customer and the user in the loop when building the product. We wanted to jump in. We didn't want to jump in building the solutions from the get-go. We wanted to spend more time in developing and understanding the product, the problem that we're trying to solve. And unfortunately, customers don't think that way. And we realized that was the case, where customers feel that when they hire a developer, they want them to start developing right away. They don't want them to understand why they're developing the software in the first place. So anyway, that backstory led for us to figure out, what we need to instead of investing all the time and money that we're building and developing better, hiring best people, developing best tools, having the best processes and best teams to work on the project, let's figure out what's the best way to validate the customer problem. What's the best way to validate the user needs? What's the best way to ensure that we decide what how do we sort of define what success looks like early on, so when we actually do build a software product, we actually build it properly.
Well,
So so we
sounds
yeah, go ahead.
sounds interesting, Rishi. Sounds like that particular company went from ideation straight to building an MVP without going through any kind of validation,
Yep.
proof of concept, or even just having a canvas to figure out what they're doing. But so let's get right into it. Let's introduce the topic today. Carlos,
Mhm.
what's the topic that we're going to be talking about today? And we're going to learn a little bit more about some of those experiences, Rishi. Please
Thank
tell us
you.
what the topic. Thanks. You're on mute.
Good. I was just playing with you as usual. I'm known as the mute guy. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, anyway, the thing is, as you know, Tulio, well, here's the thing. As a result of the changing landscape across all sectors and heightened use of digital tools due to COVID-19, it's crucial for businesses to evolve in this new world. So that's why our guest chose the following topic. He chose to talk about the importance of digital innovation amidst the changing COVID landscape. So I'd like to ask our guest as a first question, Rishi, tell us on the audience, please, why did you choose this particular topic? Why did you think the question might not be necessary, but why did you think it was relevant for this day and age?
Sure. While I think the topic of digital innovation has been around for many years, it became more relevant during COVID because of the whole survival mentality got kicked in, where companies needed to redefine who they are, and there were a lot of things that they weren't able to do, which were normal, right? They weren't able to be close to the customer. They had to serve the customer from a distance. So before COVID, digital transformation innovation was much of a luxury, but because of COVID, it became more urgent. The circumstances, landscape, and environment changed and made it more essential. And it was like innovate or get disrupted.
It's interesting that how many
Thank you so much.
companies. It's interesting how many companies find themselves at a disadvantage whenever something that they didn't plan happens, right? Be it a
Mhm.
pandemic or a major economic downturn or a competitive threat that didn't plan on. And the reality is that in the back of their minds, they knew something was off, right? They knew they weren't doing something that needed to be done, but business wasn't hurting, and so there was no sense of urgency to get ahead of it. So would you say that some of the lessons learned in the past 7, 8 months from companies that quote unquote caught themselves at a disadvantage, who have had to basically digitize their business, would you say that they've learned perhaps to get ahead of these things and plan maybe a little bit ahead with making the necessary changes before change happens to them? What's been your experience in terms of the mindset of organizations that were maybe a little more reluctant to invest in being innovative in advance of the need to do it by being proactive? What's been your experience so far?
Well, I think my general observation before and after is that customers, and businesses don't necessarily wish to change much because change is, sometimes unnecessary for them, or change is hard, or change is leads to potential failure. And so I think what the pandemic has taught us is that in circumstances such as this, where failure was sort of the option, in a sense that they may have gone out of business, but they were forced to change. They were forced to try new things. They were forced to do things differently because they had no other option to do so. So it's sort of theory of constraints kicked in for them.
And so, what have some of the key things that you've noticed that have become like necessity in terms of getting started? Those organizations that were a little bit behind the digitizing. What have been some basic block and tackle things that you've noticed that they've had to do? And those companies who have maybe still haven't done something, what are like the first few steps they ought to think about?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen is that any business that is trying to innovate and try new things is sort of creating a task force, a group of people within the organization that's been designated to try and look for new ways of doing things. And their job is to identify use cases and identify scenarios when the change and the new innovative ideas can be implemented within the organization. So that's one of the first things that I see organizations doing, is started to invest time and resources into keeping the lookout into the future. Before they were looking out right in front of them. Now they're looking out deeper in the future.
So what are some of the key things that the organization ought to focus on? You mentioned earlier about an experience where someone built an amazing product that no one adopted it because they didn't think about the actual need or use case. So what are some things that organization ought to think about in terms of, hey, we need to go digital, everything's online now, right? But there's the risk of like, do you do it in a way to just rush and do it, or what's the steps that they ought to follow to think this through and do it in a way that's appropriate for their business, right? Because what might be appropriate for business A may not necessarily be appropriate for business B. So how are you helping organizations through that conversation? What are some of the things that come up that you find yourself needing to push back at times and say, hey, this is what you ought to be thinking about, and here's why? What are all those things? I'd love to hear them and share them with the audience as well, because I'm sure that they're listening and like to take some notes as well.
Sure. I think before we have clients wanting to invest in something new, a new product, digital product, I think we like to emphasize on having the customers take a step back and help us and help the team get involved in understanding what led them to think about this product, and to understand the needs, the pain points, the frustrations of the users that they're trying to solve by doing this. So we want to sort of invest more time on the problem island, as they say, and instead of focusing on the solution island. And having us engage with more customers, learn about what the user persona is, the customer persona is going to be, and what the goal of that particular customer's needs are going to be, and then we are able to solve that and bring that outcome to light more. I would just say solve that problem better with our solution that we're trying to build for them. So we feel that we start off with the customer validation of the problem and spending more time on that subject before we get into the solution and building the solution itself.
Rishi, I have a question. Have you witnessed specific spaces or verticals, so companies in specific spaces or verticals? Have you witnessed or even helped them to pivot, from one space into another, and precisely because of COVID-19?
Yes. So there was a customer that we were engaged with that was focused on building a solution for the retail industry, and the solution was primarily helping them achieve inventory control. While because of COVID, the retail industry has been I would just say moved into the cloud and into the e-commerce business. So they had to pivot and use that same solution in more warehousing space instead of using it only for counting inventory in the retail environment. So we had to revisit how we're going to use the solution to validate and speed up the process of maintaining inventory for the customers.
Okay, so in that sense, you wouldn't say that COVID-19 is necessarily a killer for specific spaces or verticals, but they're kind of pushing them to either get creative or maybe find a new approach or find a new way to do things, move from brick and mortar to digital. So those types of scenarios, right? And so how do you do this? What is the best way to seamlessly help your clients with this pivoting?
Well, I think one needs to understand that in a scenario where you have sometimes sense of urgency of making a pivot is vital. I think it's important to figure out what resources do we have currently within the organization and the assets that we have in terms of solutions that we have, which allow you to figure out what are the other use cases you can solve with it, and those allow you to create that pivot, more easily. Otherwise, it's a more dramatic pivot that you're trying to do something completely brand new. But you have to sort of look into your arsenal of tool sets and see what you can actually best. So, and one example sort of comes to mind with another customer that we engage with. We were building a more like a customer loyalty system for the auto industry, for the dealership, and we had to revisit the same assets could be utilized to help in the medical industry instead of having being so customers can now queue up, instead of queuing up to get the car service. Now they can queue up to get themselves visit the doctors and create that smooth pipeline of patients coming in without them having sort of all being waiting in the wait room. So how do we use the same customer loyalty and customer solution that allows you to ensure that customers are coming in at a defined period of time within the office visit, so that they can so we can ensure that they don't get infected, and the customers are able to be served better by the patients are being better served by the doctor's office.
Thank you, Rishi.
Clearly, technology is reshaping the way companies do business, and in some cases, permanently. What are you seeing? Some trends in the past, specifically in the past year, or more so in the past 7-8 months? Any trend emerging that could be a telltale sign of things to come? Some of these might be temporary changes, some of these might be permanent. What are you seeing in terms of any trends, anything that's come up that you're sort of seeing a pattern toward propensity towards certain things that consumers want now that they didn't care for perhaps even 9 months ago?
Well, there are a number of industries that are going through some permanent, some temporary changes, and we don't know what's going to be coming out of post-pandemic in those industries. I think the delivery of services and products to a household is not going to go away. I think people have gotten used to getting more and more groceries and more food deliveries, and now even retail products being delivered to your doorstep. So I think the delivery services is a trend that's probably here to stay, and probably become even more prevalent and important moving forward. Things that you never thought are going to be delivered are now being all delivered to your footsteps. So I think that trend is here to stay, and it's going to be affecting a number of industries at the same time.
Now, the impact, let's take that, for example, in the retail space with home delivery service. Clearly that's here to stay, but that is not necessarily an easy thing if you live in a big building, right? If you're delivering to someone's home, you leave the stuff on the front porch, or you got the space to drop these things off. But in a building where it's 100 people, 100 families there, that becomes a challenge. Where do you leave these items? And there's always the risk of things getting stolen. So some companies have moved towards drop shipping, and where you could go pick up the stuff at the post office or at a location. Like Amazon uses a number of things. They have their own stores. They have Kohl's, Whole Foods, etc. But they're not the only retailer that's doing that. There are other retailers that are also moving into that drop shipping business model. Do you foresee the potential where some real estate, for example, will be commercial real estate, where a lot of space is out there that's kind of basically sitting empty, right? Because some of these businesses may never return back to those retail brick and mortar spaces. Could these be utilized as dropship locations? Is there an opportunity here for the commercial real estate business to use and leverage this movement to digitize and offer capabilities that perhaps they hadn't thought of before? Any trends like that? Have you seen that perhaps? I'd love to hear any stories around that happening.
Well, I think the news is already coming out from Amazon that they are partnering up with the malls to be able to have some of the mall locations be converted into warehouse space and potentially a pickup spot for one to pick up more items there. I mean, I think Amazon has also created their own product, Ring. You can now deliver stuff into your garage by giving them permission to do so. I think curbside pickup is going to be something that's going to be here to stay as well. So being able to pick up stuff at the malls or at the stores, to be able to do that safely without necessarily going inside. So there are a number of trends. Commercial real estate, I see that there's a big trend of consolidating a number of smaller warehouse spaces, sort of giving the last mile access, and a quicker access to goods within different locales. So I see that's another commercial real estate trend that we are seeing, currently.
It's interesting. The promise of digital was always the idea of self-service, right? Self-service is always great service because you're the one providing it, right? But in essence, also, it turned everyone into an employee. The shipping companies figured this out a long time ago by basically giving you the equipment, the technology in your hands to print your own labels and essentially basically turn you into an employee of the company because you're doing the work. Now, what's happening is, in a way, with pickup service, you're kind of also now extending the employee base into the consumer, who's like, hey, you place an order, you come and get it. If you want to get it safely and you want to avoid it maybe getting lost because you live in a building or what have you. So it's an interesting phenomenon that more and more self-service seems to be the way everything is going. And isn't that really the promise of digital, to empower the end user, the end customer, to receive the service on their own terms and to basically manage that relationship themselves? Is that the trend that is now becoming sort of the thing that is putting the nail on the coffin, if you will, that this is how it's got to go? If you're not planning it this way, you're going to fail at this. What are you seeing in terms of that trend?
Well, I think from the trend standpoint, I see that the empowering the customer and the consumer is getting them to take on some responsibilities in that chain. But I think most importantly, what's happening is the customer is getting and the producer or the manufacturer is getting closer to the customer, and the number of steps that it goes through to be able to deliver that product are being shortened. I think now there's almost like farm to table. I would just say the next trend is going to be manufacturers to the home, right? They don't need the middleman to do much other than warehouse at this point. A lot of companies are now trying to cut off the number of steps that it takes for a consumer to drop off the product. So that basic savings is going to be that will empower the customers to get access to the products faster. I would just say the trend that Dell probably started off 20 years ago, making sure that they'd ship a laptop straight to your door and that you could customize it. I think that trend's going to come in more industries in different forms now.
That's an interesting observation. I couldn't find hand sanitizer anywhere until I found a commercial company that produces it for a lot of the manufacturers that sell in retail shop, converted their commercial business into direct to consumer, and then I could order the product. And I was starting to say, if you think about it today, because of the distribution and the readily available access to shipment services, you really don't need the middle retailer to do this. And it's a challenge because those retailers have been hit already pretty hard because of COVID-19. Now suddenly the manufacturers are like, well, to survive, we had to go direct. And that's not a model we're going to necessarily change. So what happens to the brick and mortar retailers? I mean, it's kind of an interesting evolution, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So I think the footprint of the brick and mortar retailer is going to change. I think there was I've not read the study post pandemic, but pre-pandemic, there was a study that a lot of the large malls are going to become experience centers, and a lot of the smaller stores format is going to be, the format of coffee pickup or getting your laundry done are going to be the format that's going to here to stay. So I feel that is just based on the observation of the last 8 months. It seems that the experience centers are now going to become mini warehouse spaces for curbside pickup, and the smaller retail locations closer to your let's say neighborhood are also going to become some level of pickup places for you to pick up those items, essential items, without going into the store.
Interesting. It remains to be seen what comes out of this too. Some new ideas that haven't been thought of. Yeah, I started thinking, what if people actually set up little distribution centers right in their neighborhood, turn part of their houses into little distribution centers, pickup centers? Who knows? That's another gig economy that can be extended, where you can choose where you pick up your item, literally from your neighbor who might have room in their garage to pick up. Who knows? I mean, there's opportunity out of all these things. We're coming up on time, and Rishi, it's been an interesting conversation. Definitely got me thinking a lot about what's happening in this space and the need to get on board with it and get creative, change the way things have been done. Let's talk a little bit about your journey building this business and the culture of your company as we wrap up. What would you say has made it exciting for you to be in this space, and why do you keep being in this space?
Right. So I think for me personally, and for some of our folks in our organization, it's more about what impact we can bring to our customers and the consumers. And so everything that we do, we focus on the outcome. And so keeping that in mind, our culture as a business really focuses on making sure that everyone, sort of focuses on the unique abilities, because everyone is unique in what they can do. And the way our product projects are even staffed is that there is a solution architect, there's a user experience designer, there is a product owner, and there's a developer, and so everyone plays their own role. So from the unique abilities perspective, we want to make sure that everyone plays what they're really good at. And because of that diverse set of teams that we have, experienced teams that we have, we are able to build a great solution, and we are able to bring a very great product to the market. What makes our culture unique, apart from that, is that we all driven to become better every day, and I have a poster behind me as well, which talks about that. I want to be a best version of myself every day, and so everyone in the organization has that I would say importance of investing in themselves and growing and becoming better, and focusing on our passions and our core values. So that sort of makes our culture pretty unique.
Well, Rishi, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thanks for joining us today. And we look forward to continuing to keep an eye on how things evolve, for sure. Carlos, what do we got coming up next 2 days? We have 2 more shows this week, right?
Yeah, Tulio. Tomorrow we're going to be answering the question, can AI allow us to identify and achieve deep energy retrofits at scale? And that is with Nishant Sanghavi and Alex Corniglio, the CEO and CTO, respectively, of ENO8 Solutions, with the topic, how data science is opening new doors in energy efficiency. And then on Thursday, we'll be speaking with Michael Gasiorek, the founder and CEO of the Truth Cartel, and we're going to be speaking about accelerating your authority, 4 steps to winning over your industry. So this is a company that deals with reputation handling, and he's going to talk about how reputation matters, or why reputation matters, and also we're going to learn how to build our personal platform to grow your influence and your income. So those are the 2 topics for this week. Thank you.
Great.
Right here on Dojo Live.
Looking forward to it. See you all back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific.